Groan, 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 oh groan. You know one of the biggest problems with supremacists? One of the biggest issues with supremacists is that they take actions that they think are going to help their cause, but at the exact same time, the actions that they're taking only destroy everything that supports them. I dislike being a citizen in a supremacist country. A country where we believe we are the superior people in the world. If you make us uncomfortable, you need to stop. Because the worst thing in the world is if I feel uncomfortable. And the issue is, right, you got the pundits out there, you got the commentary people out there, and they spew their racist bile. And look, it is what it is, right? You know, whoever you are, we all have our commentators, our criticizers, those types of people. And then you have the politicians. Who are politicians? They're simply people that embody, what other people think. So you get a lot of their racist and horrible bile out of them. The problem is for a country, the problem is for a nation, is what happens when the company leaders, when the business leaders in your nation start spewing the bile. What happens when Anthropic AI fully takes the position of just being racist, nasty pieces of crap? Anyways, what should we expect? It's big tech. When was the last time big tech was ethical? So this is a hell of a thing. So again, right now we have the fight with China. Again, I am informed as an American. I got a fear of the China man. Why? Fuck me, I can't tell you. Because apparently there's a 9-dash line. Have you heard that? Winnie the Pooh created the 9-dash line in the South China Sea. That is utterly absurd. Here's the thing that I'll point out to people. At least they got a line. You ever think about that? We hear the screaming about the 9-dash line. And this proves how evil China is. They've got the 9-dash line. Yeah, our military is in the Middle East. It's in South America, it's in Africa, it's in Europe, it's in Asia, it's even in Australia. You know, the thing that impresses me the most about the 9-dash line is it's a line. They go that far. I mean, should we have an argument about it? Yeah. Should we have a debate about it? Yeah. Should we have a back and forth about it? Yeah. But the most amazing thing about the 9-dash line for China is it goes about that far. It goes about that far. You don't see Chinese troops in the UK. You don't see Chinese troops in Australia. You don't see Chinese troops all over the world. Because they got their weird-ass little 9-dash line. But anyways, they got this 9-dash line. Oh, my God! They want land in the South China Sea. And if they try to take that land in the South China Sea, our government does not care how many Americans get slaughtered just to make sure China knows what's what. But anyways, again, think about this. Like, when was the last time you heard any argument for China being a threat to the mainland United States? When was the last time you heard about China being able to bomb LA? Or China creating new weapon systems that can take out New York City? Seriously, when was the last time you even heard that? And yet, day after day after day, have you heard our new stealth bomber? Where we have to spend, $1 billion per stealth bomber so that we can bomb the Chinese homeland, right? This stealth fighter needs farther range so that it can be launched from our aircraft carrier and make it all the way over the Chinese mainland in order to do missions. Think about how much money we're putting on the table so that we can slaughter Chinese folks. Just as soon as one of our leaders decides that's the way to go. Oh, China man made me a little nervous. Right? Anyways, Again, under the Democrats, under the Republicans. Again, Obama, Nobel Peace Prize winner. Again, called the Pacific Pivot. We pivoted our entire military establishment to contain China. Trans-Pacific Partnership, under the Democrats too. Economic pact in order to try to contain China. Artificial intelligence, can't have no China man getting artificial intelligence. Their society has advanced far enough. Any further, China man, and you might make me a little bit nervous. All right? And so we have this whole anti-AI thing against the Chinese, right? Again, under Biden, this was pushed hard under Biden, to be clear. Now it's being pushed more under Trump. And our industrial establishment seems to be, frog marching, duck marching, what's it called? Nazi marching, right behind our president to say China man needs to be held back. Their society has risen far enough. We feel uncomfortable. They need to stop. So anyways, again, there's this whole anti-AI thing for China. The idea that AI is more dangerous than nuclear weapons because, sure, why the hell not? Will that get big tech more money? If big tech convinces you AI is more dangerous than nuclear weapons, will you give them trillions of dollars? Because that's the most important thing here. The most important thing is not whether China man dies, it's whether Sam Altman gets another couple $1 billion. Anyways, he's not Anthropic, but he's in this whole AI bunch. Again, this whole idea that AI is right. You have to be at the forefront of AI. What is AI? Who the hell knows? We don't actually have to define what AI is before we can tell the Chinaman they shouldn't get it. Oh, Chinaman. I can't be bothered to define the thing that you're trying to obtain. I can just tell you, you shouldn't get it. So anyways, there's this idea that AI is the next industrial revolution. Why? Because that gets Sam Altman and those people trillions of dollars, and that's the most important thing. So it's being pushed out there. And so since AI is the next industrial revolution, whoever owns AI owns the world. Is that how this shit works? Absolutely not. But again, we are in a society that believes everything is made with code. Again, my roof isn't made with code, my plumbing isn't made with code, my car isn't made with code. The servers running your code are not actually built in Node.js, but when you have a generation of adults who have lived in this modern world where somebody else has actually produced the value in their lives. Do you think Sam Altman, do you think the people at Anthropic have ever farmed? Do you think they've ever worked in a factory? Do you think they've ever built a goddamn thing in their lives other than the code? So to them, the code is the most important thing, right? AI. So anyways, since this is the future, and again, if we don't have AI, again, we don't have housing, and that's fine. And we don't have health care, and that's fine. And we don't have a decent education system, and that's fine. Right, think about all these things we do not have in our society. Again, we do not have affordable housing. We do not have affordable health care. We do not have a fucking sane system of education at this point. But that's not what's most important, right? Figuring out how to train more nurses, oh, that's not important. Building more hospitals, that's not important, right? Doing that, that's not, no, AI, artificial intelligence is the most important thing. Why? Because it gets big tech the money. And the only damn thing in the world that big tech cares about is just an ounce more of blood money. And anyways, since they're convincing our politicians that AI is the most important thing, well, then we can't let the Chinaman get it, right? And so we've been having all these pushes with this whole can't send, GPUs and AI type hardware to China. So under the Biden administration, right, they put through these policies that said for Nvidia, it was like TPUs or something. Anyways, they came up with this number and they said, you cannot send any GPUs that are able to do a number above this. I remember, I read about the number. It's a stupid ass number. Anyways, there was a number. They came up with a number. Right, so anyway, Nvidia looked at it. And again, being good Americans, they're like, well, sir, this is fucking stupid, but you are, sir. And so they created GPUs that were under that level. And then the Biden administration, again, to be clear, the Biden administration literally looked at Nvidia and said, we see what you're doing. It's like, what? They're following the law. Yeah, you passed a law, you passed a regulation, they read it, they figured out what numbers they could sell, and they're selling those particular numbers. And Biden, we see you. What? Again, tacit threats against Nvidia for, wait for it, following the law. And they get so worried about this AI hardware and all that kind of stuff. Again, there starts to be regulations about sending AI hardware to Middle East. What if the Middle Easterners sell it to the Chinese? Again, to South America. What if they sell it to the Chinese? Whoa, to even the European countries. Well, I mean, if we have to kneecap our own allies' progress in civilization just to make sure the Chinaman is down, well, sorry, you just got to be kneecapped. All right? And as I've talked about with this, China is a country of 4x our population. It is basically the factory of the world. They are smart, talented, disciplined people that do not particularly want their civilization held back because of demented old people half the world away. And so they're producing their own stuff. Again, Huawei was told they couldn't to purchase certain processors for their smartphones a number of years ago. We were told Huawei was as good as dead. Then Huawei came out with their new smartphones. And apparently they're pretty damn good. It's not even like they just came out with potatoes. Like, well, the best you can do is a potato. Apparently they came out with new smartphones that everybody says, these are actually pretty darn good. Right? And the same thing is true with AI. Right? So they're told you cannot get access to our AI processors. So Huawei started designing their own system, their own AI processors. Again, a bit of a different architecture. They use more GPUs, they use more processors, but they put it through a network infrastructure to get good performance. And basically what we're told is, well, they may get NVIDIA performance, but it costs them more in electricity. Like what? Again, I'm just going to put this out there. This is going to be a recurring theme in this whole video. Is what you're going to see is like, well, yeah, China can get AI the equivalent of ours, but they've got to use more electricity to get there. And I'm just going to put this on the table. I don't really think China gives a damn about spinning up a new coal power station to get AI services. It's like, oh, your electricity bill is going to be $10,000 instead of $7,000 this month. Do you want to give up on AI? No. Here's some more money. But anyways, again, they're moving ahead with AI. And so the curious thing is, again, with Anthropic now, Anthropic is coming out in support of Trump's policies, right? Securing America's compute advantage. Anthropic's position on the diffusion rule. And this is from Anthropic itself. This is Anthropic's declaration to the world what racist pieces of garbage they are. They demand that the Chinese population be held back so that they can get their blood money. And this is my frustration. This is my frustration. And as we read through this, you realize they're willing to burn our society just so they can get a fraction of an advantage. They're willing to burn all of our societies just so they can get a fraction of an advantage. This is from Anthropic itself. In response, the Department of Commerce's, quote, framework for artificial intelligence diffusion final rule, Anthropic has submitted detailed analysis and recommendations for maintaining and strengthening export controls on advanced semiconductors. At the heart of our recommendations is a clear message. We are members of the KKK. Well, no, that's not their message. It wouldn't be that obvious. It's the modern world. Maintaining America's compute advantage through export controls is essential for national security and economic prosperity as powerful new AI systems are developed in the coming years. And again, that's one of the things to be thinking about with AI. Again, we talk about education, we talk about hospitals. I mean, we're not going to build any more hospitals. We're not going to fix our healthcare system or our education system. But AI could be used for this type of thing. Again, I've talked about my wife who had multiple cancers. My family, multiple cancers, right? You go through CAT scans, you go through MRIs. Imagine if you had CAT scans and MRIs with high quality AI that were as good as radiologists. So literally, they could do a Xerox scan of your body, and as soon as the scan came out, the AI could say, this is 99% what you have. Think about the healthcare advantage there. Again, think about things like AI with all these IoT devices on us and the whole 9 yards. What if we could be alerted? What if people could be alerted when they were going down the bad route that would get them into heart attacks or that kind of thing? Again, with AI, logistic routing, especially if you got a country of 1.2, 1.3 billion people, how to more appropriately distribute things through logistical systems and all that kind of stuff. Imagine how valuable that would be for AI, right? Imagine how far society could progress with these improved systems. But Chinaman shouldn't get that. The diffusion rule, published in January 2025, establishes export controls on advanced AI chips and model weights worldwide. And again, this is one of the interesting things with this policy too. Again, I have no idea how this policy will actually work out. AI chips, again, you want to stop those from being exported. God bless, whatever, we'll see if that works. But model weights, so they're actually talking about restricting models. And so all models are files. How well did that work out for the music industry? How well did that work out for the movie industry? I mean, thank God we solved piracy 20 years ago because it was so easy to protect data. Anyways. And model weights worldwide. The diffusion framework also creates a 3-tier system based on national security risk. Tier 1 includes close allies with few restrictions. Tier 2 includes most other countries with some limits. Again, we are limiting most other countries because, boo, boogeyman. And Tier 3 includes adversarial nations with strict controls. The first Trump administration correctly diagnosed that AI will be central to strategic competition with China and that the United States can and should use export controls to maintain and strengthen its AI leadership. We must be the leaders in AI. So here's my thing. Again, as we're going to read through this, one of the things you'll notice with all these export controls, right? There's always all these rules on what you can't do. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do the other thing. People that are law-abiding citizens, countries that are trying to do the right thing, you are being restricted because old white guy is a little bit scared. But one of the things you'll notice, again, with keeping AI leadership, have you heard from the Trump administration how we're going to be reinvigorating the VOTEC programs in the United States? So VOTEC, vocational education in the United States. When I was in high school, I don't know how much of this exists anymore, but you could be on the college track or you could be on the VOTEC track, right? The VOTEC track basically got you the skills for a middle-class lifestyle while you were in high school. You could learn plumbing, you could learn electrical work, you could learn automotive. Again, DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America, what I was part of the entrepreneurship program. Again, I spent 2 years in high school learning entrepreneurship so that I could go and start my business when I turned 18 years old. Anyways, right? Have you heard from the Trump administration how we're going to be reinvigorating VOTEC programs in the United States so that we can both make sure our young people can get middle-class lifestyles without having to go into ruinous debt, going to college, and so that we can strengthen our industrial capacity? Yeah, I haven't heard that either. Have you heard the requirements, right? We hear about this, that woke has to get stripped out of all the schools. Right? Gender ideology has to get stripped out of all the schools. Here's the thing on the Trump administration. Have you heard of requirements for how many students need to graduate from or need to take calculus? Think about this, right? Really worried about gender identity in schools. Not so worried if our kids learn calculus. Again, even now, right? Like $2 billion is going to get ripped away from Harvard. Harvard isn't bending the knee to Trump, ergo they're going to lose $2 billion. Now here's the thing, is that illegal? Probably. But I got to tell you something. Again, this is real world, real politic. If you were saying we're going to take those $2 billion and redistribute that money to community college programs for STEM and manufacturing degree programs, somebody like me would be like, what? That's illegal. You should not be able to do that, Trump. But, if you're going to fund STEM and, community colleges in an affordable way for people to get more advanced degrees and actually give us the industrial capacity to, do factories and all that. You should probably find another process for doing that, but I'm probably not going to argue that much. You don't hear that. All you hear about is abusing the shit out of the Chinese, right? It's not our problem. It's not our fault. We do not have agency in this world to change the circumstances. No, it's their fault. They stole our industrial capacity. When our companies went there to build factories, they stole our capacity. When our citizens buy goods from them, they're not competing the right way. Do you notice the superior mindset? We are superior. Ergo, any of these problems are not ours. They're the other people's. Again, look at the drug war. Right? Our population is so depressed, so disenfranchised, so not just understanding what the future is and what their place in it is. Are we fully funding public mental health care? Are we fully funding rehabilitation programs? Are we bringing people out of the doldrums of depression into the light of being productive members of this society? Of course not, because it's not our fault. It's the Mexican man's fault. It's the Cuban man's fault. It's the Colombian man's fault. You expect Americans to build rehabilitation facilities so that we no longer crave an escape from the insanity of our society? That's ridiculous. We all know the true solution is to send weapons and soldiers into Central and South America to slaughter civilians because it's their people that are causing us problems. Our manufacturing capacity has disappeared because those brown people are wrong. Our drug use is through the roof because those brown people are wrong. We don't have a black woman president because the Latinos are misogynistic. And I'll just put this out there, at the exact same time in Mexico, they elected a woman president. But anyway, it's not our fault. It's their fault. Let's see here. While the U.S. still maintains a lead in AI development, Chinese AI labs like DeepSeek have made significant progress using chips obtained before export controls went into effect and underscore the importance of strong export controls on advanced chips. How dare DeepSeek be competitive? How dare a Chinese company buy off-the-shelf components, do their own engineering, and then compete with us? Shows you how dirty they really are. We ground our recommendations in several key facts. Compute advantage is critical. Advanced AI systems require massive computing power to train and operate. The U.S. currently leads in advanced semiconductor technology, and export controls capitalize on the trend of computing power doubling every 2 years. So while U.S. chip technology continues advancing, China's progress is slowed. And again, think about that. a nation of 1.2, 1.3 billion people. Their progress is slowed by these export controls that our companies want pushed. This growing efficiency gap means that by 2027, countries using older chips could face AI training costs that are 10 times higher than those with cutting-edge American technology. But there's a funny thing about that wording. They're not saying, right, countries using older chips can't do the training. They're simply saying that the cost will be 10x. So it's not that we are preventing them, it's that we're just going to make it as expensive as hell. Think about it if you're in these other countries. How happy would you be about that? Your cost to advance as a civilization is going to go up by 10x because those people halfway around the world are a little queasy about what you're doing. DeepSeek shows controls work. Chinese AI companies like DeepSeek openly acknowledge that chip restrictions are their primary constraint. Yeah, if 1 minute you can buy crap off the shelf and the next minute you can't buy crap off the shelf, it's gonna be a constraint. Hey, Anthropic, you're gonna figure out that constraint in about 5 weeks. When all that computer equipment and shit we're used to getting from China is now jacked up by 145%, you're gonna find out about export constraints too. But anyways, requiring them to use 2 to 4x more power to achieve similar results to US companies. DeepSeek also likely used frontier chips for training their systems, and export controls will force them into less efficient Chinese chips. So again, they're still getting the end results. It's just costing them 2 to 4x in power. Which means, oh no, Winnie the Pooh is gonna have to build another fucking coal-fired power plant. I just don't see them stopping because of that. And we'll force them to use quote unquote less efficient Chinese chips. China's 3 to 5 years behind us. Every year they advance. So by 2027, we're going to be in the lead. And by 2030, we're going to be getting left in the dust. Cement America's infrastructure lead. I'm sure this is where they're going to talk about college programs. I'm sure this is where they're going to focus on STEM education in our high schools. I'm sure this is where Anthropic talks about that type of thing. Anthropic talks about our responsibility to improve our own society. I'm sure this is where Anthropic discusses that. Cement America's infrastructure lead. Without strong controls, AI infrastructure development for frontier scale training could shift overseas, similar to solar panels and batteries. Yeah, it's all about the controls. It's not about our education system or about our industrial policy or about our environmental laws or about a whole bunch of other things. Again, this is where Brown man stole. Brown man stole our stuff. No, we haven't moved forward. Again, living in Baltimore for years, having been around the Rust Belt for years. I mean, here's the thing. We are taking areas that were designated for factories and turning them into condo units. Right? We are literally knocking down our factories and our warehouse districts to put in condo units. Even if I wanted to create a factory right now, and this is one of the things I want you to think about. If you're an 18-year-old, right? If you're an 18-year-old and you wanted to create a development company, you want to develop program stuff, you could probably figure out how to do it, right? If you're an 18-year-old and you want to create a movie company, you want to be an influencer, you want to create the next movie company or whatever, you can probably figure that out, whatever. If you're an 18-year-old and you want to build a factory, seriously, as an 18-year-old, how do you figure out how the hell to build a factory in the United States right now? Again, because beyond the stuff, right? You need employees, you need a lot of equipment, you got fixed assets, you got all that stuff. But again, permitting process, EPA regulations, all of that kind of stuff. If I wanted to create a fact, if I was like, you know what, I realize, Trump is right, we need to reshore. And I was like, I want to be part of the next industrial revolution. How? Right? We destroy our industrial capacity and then we blame them. Similar to solar panels and batteries, threatening U.S. strategic advantage. The U.S. share of global semiconductor production has fallen from 40% in 1990 to just 12% today. Yes, because it went from the United States, it then went to Japan, and then it went to South Korea, and now Taiwan, and it's migrating over to China. Yeah, because again, industrial capacity, where people put the effort. With 90% of the world's leading edge semiconductors now made outside the United States, the offshoring represents a strategic vulnerability, and we must not make the mistake again with AI. The diffusion framework addresses this risk through domestic compute requirements and foreign compute caps, ensuring the coming AI infrastructure build-out happens in America by American firms. And who's going to do it? I don't know. Current supply constraints combined with the framework's global export regime create clear incentives for other nations to buy Chinese. Accessing large-scale, cutting-edge compute requires investing in U.S. AI infrastructure and complying with American export controls. Chip smuggling is a major threat. China has established sophisticated smuggling operations with documented cases involving hundreds of millions of dollars worth of chips. In some cases, smugglers have employed creative methods to circumvent export controls, including hiding processors in prosthetic baby bumps and packing GPUs alongside live lobsters. Chinese firms continue to establish shell companies in third countries at a rapid pace to evade export controls. Oh, no. China is buying our products. Those bastards. Anthropic's submission recommends strengthening the rule in 3 areas. Adjust the tiering system. We suggest allowing countries in Tier 2 with robust data center security to obtain more chips through government-to-government agreements that prevent smuggling and align technology controls. Again, if you're in one of these Tier 2 countries, as long as you bend the knee to the Trump administration, we might consider letting your society advance to the next stage. And again, think about this. You want to build out a data center. You want to build out a new company. You want to do any of this kind of stuff. Government-to-government agreements. Right? Do you want to deal with that crap? Again, as an American. I know I've got a lot of Chinese people watching this right now, but as an American, if you're an American, think about if you took that American mentality and you went to Italy, you went to France, you went to Germany, you went to Argentina, you went to Saudi Arabia, and you were told whether or not you could get a product in order to build your next innovation comes down to whether some senile old loser half a world away thinks the world is getting a little yippy today. Again, from a risk mitigation standpoint, is that the kind of product you want to go near? 2, reduce the no license compute threshold for Tier 2 countries. Currently, countries in Tier 2 can buy the equivalent of 1,700 Nvidia H100 advanced chips without needing government permission, roughly $40 million worth of technology. This creates a potential loophole for smuggling, as people can make multiple purchases just under the limit to avoid scrutiny. We recommend lowering this threshold so that more transactions would require a review, making it harder for smugglers to exploit this gap. That's right. Everybody should know that Anthropic wants Big Brother breathing down your neck. Hey, that's why they're building AI. If we build all of this AI to create a Big Brother surveillance apparatus, We got to prove why it has value. So what we want to do, all we wanted you to do is to change your regulations so that you need more oversight of the population that's not doing anything illegal so that you use our products. Isn't it nice to see Anthropic trying to shit on our fucking Constitution in the United States? The very concept that makes the United States a powerful country, again, Anthropic wants to run over. Quote 3, increase funding for export enforcement. Again, they want more jack-booted stormtroopers. There's nothing they want more than jack-booted stormtroopers to put their knees onto the appropriate necks. Export controls are only effective with proper enforcement. Advanced resources for the Bureau of Industry and Security would significantly improve control effectiveness. Our submission also highlights the risks of further delaying implementation. Chinese firms have engaged in aggressive stockpiling ahead of the May 15th, 2025 implementation day. They've done aggressive stockpiling. Oh, you mean they front-loaded their purchases before a specific date so they don't get hammered by the new restrictions? You know, like the companies in our country that have been stockpiling until the 145% tariffs come through. Again, you notice how they're twisting this, right? Gotta fear the China. Any pause would invite further stockpiling and weaken the effectiveness of the rule at this critical moment. The strategic window for strengthening American export controls is now. By strengthening the fusion framework, America can ensure transformative AI technologies are developed domestically in alignment with American values and interests. Our continued leadership in AI depends on maintaining our compute advantage through decisive actions today. Anthropic's leaders have previously outlined our position on competition with China and export controls in the following pieces. Right? So it's not about improving our education system, American education system. It's not about improving our industrial policy in the United States. It's not about improving our zoning policy. Right? Setting apart parts of American cities that are factory zones. Right? Here is the next Superfund site. Hey, EPA. Yeah, we found out a new way to deal with the Superfund sites. Yeah, we're just going to say in 100 years, this area will be one. So start budgeting now. Right? Again, think about it. Right? Come up with sane industrial policy. Come up with sane zoning policy. Teach our young people and our middle-aged people what their place in a more industrialized society would be. How do you become a CEO for a hardware manufacturing company, right? How do you deal with operations at a manufacturing company? Like all of this stuff. But that's the thing, right? It's not about our actions. We're perfect. We're perfect. Don't you understand? Don't you understand? What about us do you not seem to grasp? We're perfect. The problem is those people. And not only is this immoral, and not only is this unethical, and not only is this fucking disgusting, right? The leadership of Anthropic should just put on the fucking robes. Put on the robe, put on the hood. We get who you are, Anthropic. But the worst part is, it's not even going to help the United States. China's already producing AI chips, right? And they're just going to get better. And this is not some Orientalism. It's not like, oh my God, I love the China people. It's that they've got over 1.2, 1.3 billion people. They have fine universities. They have good research. They have massive manufacturing capacity. Roy, can you set them back 5 years? Probably. Can you set them back 10 years? I doubt it, but maybe. Are you going to send them back 15 years? Are you going to send them back 20 or 30 years? You're simply forcing them to build up the capacity that you say we need to be a leader in. And again, the important thing to understand, we're not teaching any more of our kids calculus. We are not teaching any more of our kids physics. We are not convincing the next generation of our students that being scientists and engineers is the cool place to be. Right? No. We still have our crappy ass education system. Right? K through 12 education system. We still have our garbage ass college system that is more interested in bankrupting our young adults than anything else. The one thing our modern education system is really good at is bankrupting the next generation of leaders. Right? Where is the garage policy? This is one of the things I've talked about for a long time, right? The whole thing of like the next Google will come out of a garage, right? The whole idea that Google was created in a garage. Well, here's the thing. Housing prices in the United States are so high, a garage costs $1 million now. Right? Again, you go back 20 years, a garage, right? Garage, I don't know. What's a garage on a house? $20,000, $30,000? Again, it's the place you shove shit. Who the hell cares? What, the garage? Yeah, we don't use the garage. Use the garage, right? Again, you have a $200,000 house or a $150,000 house. It has a garage on it. Fine, let the kids use the garage. Maybe they'll create the next Google. Maybe they'll do dope. I don't know. One or the other, right? Our garages cost $1 million now. I talk about that coming to Asheville, North Carolina, and when you do Silicon Dojo, right? The whole idea. Authorityless gatekeepers, free the end user, hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is that you want. And one of the big things that I ran into is real estate prices here went through the goddamn roof. What should have cost me a rounding error for a 500 square foot to 1,000 square foot box, all of a sudden it costs real fucking money. And here's the thing, right? You got a runway. Again, whether you're a startup with $10 million in funding, or whether you got a harebrained idea and you got $1,000 in your bank account, right? That's a runway. $5 million, $10 million is a runway, and $1,000 is a runway. Right? Here's the thing, right? Because of our policies, because of where the United States currently stands with all of our policies, $1,000 doesn't get you anywhere. Again, when I started being a consultant, way back when, right? The iteration for everything, for fixing people's computers and having a business with 9 employees and then winding up on YouTube. This is what the fuck I started with. It's my stepfather's. I stole it because I liked it. You know, whatever. He was a nice guy till he died. Anyways, I was like, ooh, that's nice. And then I stole it. Anyways, he's dead. But anyway, I had this, and I had a crappy little screwdriver, and I had a little book of CDs in here, and I was renting a room for $300 a month on the edge of the ghetto, and I was able to start a repair business, computer repair business from that. Again, you look at things now, and like, again, the cost of everything has gone through the roof, and we're not fixing that. Right? If you notice the Trump administration, if you notice the current administration's policies, it's all about punishment. It's all about destruction. Right? Harvard displeases us, therefore we're going to damage Harvard. Columbia displeases us, therefore we're going to damage Columbia. Right? Oh, they have DEI policies, therefore we're going to rip away all this stuff. Right? Where are the conversations on how to get more young Americans into calculus or physics? Where are the conversations on how to get back the 20-year-old adults into the sciences? Hey, look, we know we screwed up in educating you from K through 12, but look, we have new programs to get you back into the fold. Why do we assume if you couldn't do well in math when you were 17 years old, that you can never do well at math? Why? Where are the programs to allow people, once they've settled down, once they've figured some stuff out about life, where they can go back and, hey, you know what? At 27, maybe calculus isn't that big a deal. And they're like, hey, why was this a big a deal? Right? Again, they graduate at 30. We're all going to be working until we're 100 anyway because they're destroying Social Security. Social Security is a crap show. All right, it's a crap show that they're only going to kill. We're going to be working until the day we die. So instead of graduating at 22 and working until 65, you can graduate at 32 and work till 165. Where are those programs? But there is nothing here. There is nothing in any of these policies about improving our situation. Because we're already number one. You don't got to improve the best because we're already the best. The only reason we have problems, well, those people. It is interesting too because Nvidia has shot back and basically said this is garbage. CNBC. Nvidia says Anthropic is telling tall tales in its defense of U.S. AI chip restrictions on China. Nvidia blasted Anthropic Thursday in a rare public clash over artificial intelligence policy with U.S. chip export restrictions set to take effect. Quote, American firms should focus on innovation and rise to the challenge rather than tell tall tales that large, heavy, and sensitive electronics are somehow smuggled in baby bumps or alongside live lobsters, said Nvidia. Let's see here. Where is it? In a sharply worded response to Anthropic, an Nvidia spokesperson blasted the use of policy to limit competitiveness. Quote, China, with half of the world's AI researchers, has highly capable AI experts at every layer of the AI stack. America cannot manipulate regulators to capture a victory in AI, the spokesperson said. And now think about that too. Think about if they really do have half the world's AI engineers. Because it's not they have half the world's AI engineers and we have half the world's AI engineers. I mean, if you did the math there, you're kind of missing something like 6.5 billion people. It's they have half the world's AI engineers and the other 50% is in the US and Canada and all through Europe and blah, 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 Japan. They have half the engineers. Again, we're not going to win this fight by trying to kneecap them. Let's see here. Quote, Anthropic stands by its recently filed public submission in support of the KKK and balanced export controls. Oops, that was my input. In support of strong and balanced export controls that help secure America's lead in infrastructure development and ensure the values of freedom and democracy shape the future of AI. Because nothing says freedom and democracy like controls and enforcement. You know, the thing that I really like about the United States is how free it is with all of our laws and our enforcement actions. Nothing says freedom like the jackbooted stormtrooper that has the right to murder you if they get a little bit nervous. Let's see here. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang, who visited with Chinese trade officials in mid-April, said Wednesday in Washington, D.C. that China, quote, is not behind the U.S. in AI and praised Huawei as a top global tech company. Quote, they're incredible in computing and network technology, all these essential capabilities to advanced AI, Huang said. They have made enormous progress in the last several years. So there you go. There you go. Right? America is losing the race in AI, and so therefore we're going to punish the Chinese. Because apparently that's all we know how to do. Not really great at building houses, not really great at building hospitals, not really good at figuring out education systems or anything like that. So what are we going to do? We're going to punish the brown people. Why? If they didn't want to get punished, they shouldn't have been born brown. I guess some people are like, Eli, they're not brown, they're yellow. It's like, Jesus. Oh, if they are yellow, they should go to the hospital and get their liver enzymes checked. But anyways, that's a whole different story. But again, this is my frustration here because I don't see how we advance. Right? If the crux of our competitive policy is to basically restrict other countries and then basically keep adding and adding and adding and adding and adding restrictions, if that is really the crux of our policies, I just don't see how we win, and I don't see how we don't lose. Because again, with this, like with Nvidia, right? Nvidia had to write down something like $5.4 billion in sales because they couldn't sell things to China, and that was recently. So they already had to do massive write-downs when they couldn't sell their H100s and that kind of stuff to China. And then when they came out with the new GPUs that followed the law that Biden saw them do, right? When they were told they couldn't sell those, they had to write down sales by another $5.4 billion. And again, as I talk about with economic activity, right? Every $1 million of economic activity is essentially 20 man years, right? If you think the average person in the U.S. makes $50,000 a year, that means every $1 million is 20 years of employment that disappeared. $10 million is 200. $100 million is what, 2,000. $1 billion is 20,000. So $5 billion going away is something like 100,000 years of labor disappearing, right? And that apparently is our priority here in the United States. And again, I don't, and it's not just about today. It's not just that this policy is bad for, again, keeping an advantage. But if I was a citizen from any other country, why would I want to worry about this crap? And again, it's that taste, it's that brand recognition, right? Whether it's Colgate or countries, right? Why do you use Colgate? Because you always use Colgate, right? That's one of the things with a lot of these household goods that we use, especially here in the United States, right? You get free samples when you're a kid. So there's like teeth brushing day when you're a kid, and you get Crest or you get Colgate or whatever else, right? A little sample. And the idea is that they get you using Crest when you're a kid, that you'll be using Crest when you're 80. Why? Because you started using Crest and it's all the same, so you keep using Crest. Again, I think about that with McAfee. So way back 16 years ago, 15 years ago. Anyways, so when I started in the enterprise world, we used McAfee Enterprise Edition. When I went and I started my company, McAfee was still good, so I started using McAfee, and then as we grew and we grew and we grew, I just bought more and more and more licenses of McAfee. Why? Because McAfee was good. When you looked at it, right, every year there would always be like these tests for which were the best antivirus software. There would always be 3. Like Norton would be on the top, McAfee would be at the top, and then a random one would show up. Some years it was Trend Micro, some years it was Kaspersky, some years it was AVG or Avast or something like that. But basically McAfee, Norton, and something else were always in the top. I thought Norton was a complete and utter pain in the ass. McAfee, I don't know, was good for me. And again, the other ones came in and out of the rankings, so I didn't care about. So we sold hundreds, thousands of copies of McAfee. Why did I sell thousands of copies of McAfee? Because when I started, we were using McAfee. McAfee was good enough, so we kept using McAfee, right? Think about this, right? When you go out and you buy computing products, why do you buy certain types of computers? Why do you buy from certain vendors, right? Because they were good before. I trust this, it was good before. Again, I like Fords. I have a Ford Escape now. I had a Ford F-150. Before that, I had a different Ford Escape, right? I've also owned a Ford Windstar and owned a Ford Escort way back in the day. Why do I like Fords? Because I like Fords. You get in a Ford, you know what you're getting. I know what I'm getting when I'm getting a Ford. Here's the thing. Could Chevy be better? I don't know, maybe. Could Toyota be better? I don't know, maybe. Could something be better? I don't know, maybe. But, you got to buy it, then you got to sit in it. And here's the thing. I like Fords. Fords are good. Get me the titanium edition Ford. I don't need an Audi. I don't need a BMW. Just give me a top-of-the-line Ford. I'm fine with that, right? You just keep buying because it's good enough. Again, if there's inertia there, if there's something to break that brand inertia, then you'll find something else. But otherwise, you'll keep doing what you're doing. And that's the concern here, right? How many citizens and how many CIOs and CEOs and CEOs and decision makers are sitting there looking at their infrastructure spends and builds over the next decade or two, Would you like to buy Nvidia? Well, yeah, I'd like to buy an Nvidia, but I need to buy 200 Nvidia now. And then next year, I probably need to buy 500 Nvidia. The next year after that, I plan to buy 1,000 Nvidia, right? We're going to build this infrastructure. Okay, well, what happens when we buy the 200 Nvidia now, and the next year we're not allowed to buy Nvidia? Right, there's always the concern about Nvidia going bankrupt or Nvidia's next product line not working. Right, businesses, again, it's all risk. But here's the thing to think about, again, from that decision maker standpoint, if we're going to be building out this infrastructure year over year over year, I know I can get a shipment now. I'm pretty sure I can get a shipment next year, but do I know if I can get a shipment the year after? Again, if you look at these export controls against European countries, we're not even talking about the Middle East and South America and that. They're European countries. You're in Germany, and you're building out an AI data center. Can you deal with the risk that a leader halfway around the world is going to decide, you might sell something to China, ergo, you're not going to be able to get that product? And you look at the Chinese version, and they go, we'll sell you as much of the product as you want. Like, well, so do we go with Nvidia or do we go with Huawei? Well, if we buy Nvidia, you get a good quality product, less or is more energy efficient, blase. We know we can buy this year, but we're not sure about these other years. If we buy Huawei, less energy efficient. Again, there's some real issues with Huawei, but we can buy as much as we want today, and as much as we want tomorrow, and as much as we want the day after. So if we're going to scale up our infrastructure, which do we want to scale off of? As an American, I'd say, well, Huawei sounds good. When you put it that way, Huawei. And then you look at these export controls and these rules, and again, these are being pushed through by the vainglorious leaders of the United States. And again, that's one of the things that you have to think about. Is this going through the full legislative process, or is this something that just the leader is going to push? And again, by the whim of the leader, by the whim of the last leader, by the whim of this leader. Like, whether or not you can get the building blocks for the next steps in civilization is on the whim of a leader that doesn't even really seem to care that much about his own country. How in God's name, beyond how do we win with this strategy, how do we not lose fucking horribly by this strategy? So anyways, there you go. There you go. Anthropic. Anthropic comes out full-throated anti-China, right? The point I would make for any of the Chinese folks out there is, again, and I'd say for any of the Americans out there, there's other people on the side of these arguments. There's other people on the sides of these conversations, these policy papers. If you were a Chinese person right now, why in God's name would you ever want to touch anything that Anthropic puts out? Again, an interesting thing to think about when we talk about realpolitik in the modern world. If your company uses Anthropic, what could the blowback be? All right, you put out some big posting. Right, our company has partnered with Anthropic. Think about how many people around the world are reading this kind of policy and goes, well, if your company supports clan-level racism against the global community, why in God's name should we buy a penny of anything from you? But anyways, what do I know? I'm just a geek. I am just a geek in my basement screaming at clouds. Screaming at clouds. Oh, we are in the worst timeline. We are in the worst timeline. Oh, I can't wait till Marvel resets this timeline. Hey, yeah, so when is Marvel, when is the MCU gonna reset this timeline? I'd like to I think we can do better than this. So anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about Anthropic coming out with this full-throated support of the diffusion rule? What do you think about Nvidia coming out in full-throated fashion saying, y'all dumbasses? And what do you think this means for the rest of the world? Again, and think about that. A country that keeps screaming about freedom. Freedom, 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 freedom. We will not shut up about freedom. And yet, in order for us to have freedom, apparently it has to be, secured by a metric crap ton of people in jackboots. Isn't it kind of funny how that works out? Anyways, that's all I gotta say. See y'all later.